So these are the contents of this video session. First we will be discussing about analysis artifacts, and then what is use case realization. We will be concentrating on interaction diagram. There are two different types of use case realization, under which the first one is called as collaboration diagram. That's what we are going to discuss in this video session. So there are two representations in it. One is called as a descriptor form, other one is called as instance form. And followed by, we'll be discussing about object interactions and concurrency, which is used to deposit active object, and finally we'll be concluding with object state. Analysis artifacts. So you can see in this diagram, the use case engineer is a person who is responsible to analyze a use case. So for analyzing any use case, there are four different types of inputs. One is called as use case model, that is your use case diagram, and the next one is called as supplementary requirements. So this use case model is going to concentrate on the actual core requirements. Apart from this, we also may include supplementary requirements, after which we'll be taking into account of about the business model. This is nothing but the actual class specification, and finally architecture description. So all these inputs, using all these inputs, the use case engineer will analyze a use case. So after doing so, he will be returning two different artifacts. That is, the analysis modeling will have two different outputs. One is called as analysis classes, other one is called as use case realization. So under which we will be discussing the first concept, that is called as use case realization, in this video session. Use case realization demonstrates how the identified classes, objects, etc. will interact with each other. So there are four different use case elements which is present here. One is called as analysis class diagram, which is going to say how the classes are interacting with each other, how the classes are interacting with each other. And next is interaction diagram. So here this is going to say about the collaboration and interactions between a specific instance. That is, the class is going to say the overall generic idea, but each and every object of a particular class is going to behave in a specific way. So that specific behavior is demonstrated by using interaction diagram. Apart from this, we also have special requirements. So this is going to say about some specific requirements that are not captured in the previous set. And then finally we will be discussing about use case refinement. So what are all the other, that is the extra changes that is going to be made in the use case realization. Next we will be discussing about interaction diagram. Interaction diagram is used to demonstrate the collaboration and interactions between the objects. So in class diagram we used to have the list of classes and its interaction, but the objects of each and every class will be interacting in a specific way. So such interactions is demonstrated in collaboration diagram. So there are two different types of interaction diagram. One is said to be the collaboration diagram, other one is called as sequence diagram. The first one, which is called as collaboration diagram, is going to emphasize the structural relationship between the object. So as like class diagram, which is going to say the structural relationship between classes, this one, that is a collaboration diagram, is used to say the structural relationship between objects. This is used to create a quick sketch of the object collaboration. But the other one, which is called a sequence diagram, is used to say the time ordered sequence of message. So between two objects, there can be multiple interactions, multiple messages transmitted. So in each and every time, okay, which particular message is transmitted, that such type of time ordered sequence of message is demonstrated in sequence diagram. So what is the difference between collaborations and such interactions? So collaboration is going to say the static set of relationship. It is not going to say in which time, in which particular messages are transmitted. It is going to say lifelong the project, these are the set of object which has some set of relationship. So that is called as a static set of relationship between the instances will be demonstrated here. But in interaction diagram, this is going to say about the dynamic interaction between the instances. So this is going to describe the message that each and every object which is going to send to the other object. So this is always dynamic and it is time dependent, but this is always static, which never changes based on the time. So the first concentration of this particular video session is collaboration diagram. Collaboration diagram, as I've already said to you, is going to focus on the structural aspects. So this can be demonstrated in two different forms. One is called as descriptor form, other one is called as instance form. So the meaning of descriptor form is, this is going to say the generic view of the collaboration, that is in class perspective. But the instance form is going to say something in object perspective. Okay, so here roles played by instances are called as classifier roles, and relationship which is played between the roles are called as association roles. So for example, if you take any class, so between two classes we used to have association between them. So in this association, the role which is played by one class is said to be the classifier role, and the relationship between these two classes is called as association role. And then in instance form, as I've already said you, we are going to show the collaboration by means of instances, that is objects. So this is the difference between instance form and descriptor form. So in descriptor form, we used to have classifier roles, which is nothing but classes. But here we are going to focus on instances. And next, in descriptor form, we used to use the term called as association role here, but here we used to call it as link. And for messages, it is similar between both the forms. And there are no representation of iteration, that is repetition, and branching based on, condition checking is not present in descriptor form, but the same thing is present in the instance form. The first representation is called as collaboration diagram in descriptor form. So here, as I've already said you, this is going to say about the class perspective. So here we have classifiers and associations, which are nothing but classes, and associations are termed as links. For example, you can see a class diagram like this. So where there are two different classes, one is called as a party, other one is called as address, and this is a link between these two. So each and every party member which is present over here will have one address. So here this is called as a multiplicity relationship. All these things we will be discussing in the class diagram perspective. And then here you can see within a party there can be one employer who is going to give work to multiple employees. So star is going to represent more than one. So one employer is going to hire many employees. Now the same class diagram can be demonstrated by using collaboration diagram as well in descriptor form. In such a case, you can see the extended diagram like this. So for the same party, for the same party class, you can just say along with its classifier role. So employer of a party which has one that is one employer of a party will have many employees of the same party. So this is a representation, and each and every, whether it is an employer or an employee, will have exactly one address. So here there are many terminologies. Anything which is going to start with the slash, that is, you can see here the role name must be always be prefixed by the slash. So in collaboration diagram, we used to have the role name present over here, okay, along with the class name. Similarly, you will be having class name which is going to precede with colon. So any instance which is going to any name which is preceded with a slash is called as role. Any name which is going to preside with colon is called as classifier or class name. So this is the main important thing which you want to remember while you're going to represent a collaboration diagram in descriptor form. The next one is called as collaboration diagram with instance form. Now you can see the same diagram which we have discussed in the previous slide, which is going to be represented in object perspective. So in previous diagram, what we have discussed here is in class perspective, but this one is an object perspective. So you can see here, apart from the role which is called as an employee, we used to represent the name of the employee as well. Similarly here, employer, the person Zukli is an employer of the particular party. So employee Fabrizio will have an address. Similarly, employer will have an address. Similarly, another employee which is called as a Jim, okay, he is also an employee of the party, will again have an address. So this is a detailed representation which is called as an instance form in object perspective. Remember students, here you will be, the notation is, initially you will be having an instance name which is called as, for example, Jim, followed by classifier role name which is nothing but class name which is called as an employee, and followed by colon and then classifier name which is called as a class name. So by this we come to this end of the video session. In next session we'll be getting into in depth about collaboration diagram. Thank you all.